The autumn wind carried the scent of rain through the streets as Cassandra Bennett pulled her threadbare jacket tighter around her shoulders. Her worn sneakers made soft sounds against the pavement as she walked the familiar route through the downtown district, her eyes scanning storefronts for any help-wanted signs that might have appeared overnight. Each morning brought the same ritual, the same hope, and usually the same disappointment. Cassandra had not always lived this way. 2 years ago, she had been a third-grade teacher with a small apartment and a life that made sense. But a series of unfortunate events, a sudden illness without insurance, the loss of her job, and an eviction she could not fight, had stripped everything away piece by piece until she found herself here, navigating the thin line between survival and surrender. She stopped at the corner of 5th and Market, adjusting the straps of her backpack that held everything she owned. The morning rush hour swirled around her as people in business suits hurried past with their coffee cups and briefcases, their worlds entirely separate from hers. Cassandra had learned to make herself invisible, to move through crowds without drawing attention, without inviting the looks of pity or disgust that sometimes came her way. As she stepped off the curb to cross the street, her foot caught on something that sent her stumbling forward. She caught herself against a lamppost and looked down to see what had tripped her. There, lying half under a newspaper stand, was a wallet. Not just any wallet, but one made of rich brown leather that looked like it cost more than she had earned in a month back when she had a salary. Cassandra glanced around quickly. The street was busy, but no one seemed to be searching frantically for anything. No one was retracing their steps with that panicked expression people get when they realize something valuable is missing. She bent down slowly and picked up the wallet, feeling the weight of it in her hands. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside were several credit cards with names embossed in gold lettering, a driver's license, and a fold of cash that made her breath catch in her throat. She quickly counted, there had to be at least $800 tucked neatly inside. $800 that could buy her meals for weeks, a motel room with a real bed, maybe even a phone so she could start job hunting properly. Cassandra closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of temptation press against her chest like a physical force. She was so tired of being cold at night, tired of the constant hunger that gnawed at her stomach, tired of the fear that came with not knowing where she would sleep or if she would be safe. This money could change everything, at least for a little while. But even as these thoughts raced through her mind, another voice spoke just as loudly. This wallet belonged to someone. Someone who was probably searching for it right now, feeling that same panic she had felt when she lost the last $20 she had owned. She pulled out the driver's license and looked at the photograph. The man in the picture had dark hair swept back from his forehead, serious eyes, and the kind of face that belonged to someone who lived in a completely different world than hers. Julian Whitmore, the license read. Age 35. Address in the wealthy Riverside district where Cassandra had never walked because she knew she did not belong there. She stood there on that busy corner, holding a stranger's wallet, and made a decision that went against every survival instinct screaming inside her. She would return it. She would do the right thing, even though the right thing meant walking away from the solution to all her immediate problems. Cassandra tucked the wallet carefully into her jacket pocket and began walking toward the nearest police station. She knew where it was because she had spent a night on the bench outside it once when the weather had turned particularly harsh. The walk took nearly 30 minutes, and with each step she felt the wallet pressing against her ribs like a reminder of the choice she was making. The police station was a squat brick building with fluorescent lights that hummed overhead as she pushed through the heavy doors. A sergeant sat behind the front desk, barely looking up from his computer screen as she approached. "Excuse me," Cassandra said softly. Her voice sounded scratchy from lack of use. She did not speak to many people these days. "I found this wallet on 5th Street. I wanted to turn it in so you can return it to the owner." The sergeant finally looked at her, his eyes taking in her appearance with that quick assessment people always made. She watched his expression shift from indifference to slight surprise as she pulled out the expensive wallet and placed it on the counter. He opened it carefully, checking the contents. "You found this and brought it here?" There was skepticism in his voice, as if he could not quite believe someone who looked like her would return something like this. "Yes, sir," Cassandra replied, keeping her voice steady. "I did not take anything. Everything that was inside is still there." The sergeant examined the driver's license and let out a low whistle. "Julian Whitmore. Do you know who this is?" Cassandra shook her head. The name meant nothing to her beyond what she had read on the license. "He is one of the wealthiest men in the city," the sergeant explained, his demeanor changing slightly. "Owns Whitmore Technologies. This wallet probably has enough in it to—" He trailed off, looking at her with something that might have been respect. "You did a very good thing here, miss." "I just wanted to make sure he got it back," Cassandra said simply. "Can you contact him?" "We will get this to him right away," the sergeant assured her. "Can I get your name? Mr. Whitmore might want to thank you personally." Cassandra hesitated. She did not want thanks. She did not want attention. She just wanted to leave and continue her search for work. But something in the sergeant's earnest expression made her answer. "Cassandra Bennett." She spelled it out for him as he wrote it down, then turned to leave. As she pushed back through the heavy doors into the cool morning air, she felt lighter somehow despite having walked away from $800. She had done something good, something that reminded her she was still the person she had been before everything fell apart. What Cassandra did not know was that within an hour, that wallet would be delivered directly to Julian Whitmore's office in the gleaming tower that dominated the city skyline. She did not know that Julian would ask for every detail about who had turned it in. She did not know that when the sergeant described the young woman in worn clothing who had walked 30 minutes out of her way to return something she clearly needed, Julian would stop everything he was doing to find her. As Cassandra walked away from the police station, heading back toward the industrial district where she sometimes found day labor work, she had no idea that her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. She had simply done what felt right, never suspecting that one act of honesty would lead to an encounter that would challenge everything she thought she knew about trust, connection, and the unexpected places where love can bloom. The autumn wind picked up, scattering leaves across her path, and somewhere across the city, Julian Whitmore held his recovered wallet in his hands and asked his assistant to find Cassandra Bennett, knowing only that he needed to meet the woman who had reminded him that integrity still existed in the world. Crossing boundaries. Julian Whitmore sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor, the recovered wallet resting on his polished mahogany desk. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him, the city sprawled out like a concrete empire he had conquered through years of calculated decisions and strategic moves. But at this moment, none of that seemed to matter as much as finding the woman who had returned his wallet. His assistant, Diane, stood near the door with her tablet, waiting for instructions. She had worked for Julian for 7 years and had learned to read his moods, the slight furrow in his brow, the way his fingers drummed against the desk. Something about this situation had captured his attention in a way business deals worth millions never quite did. "The police sergeant said her name is Cassandra Bennett," Diane reported, reading from her notes. "She walked to the station from 5th Street. That's about a 30-minute walk." The sergeant mentioned she appeared to be homeless or experiencing financial hardship, but she insisted she hadn't taken anything from the wallet. Julian leaned back in his chair, processing this information. "She walked 30 minutes out of her way to return something that could have solved her immediate problems," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Find her, Diane. I need to thank her personally." "Sir, she didn't leave contact information. Just her name." "Then we search," Julian said firmly. "Start with the area around 5th Street. Check with local shelters, community centers, anywhere she might frequent. I want to meet her today." Diane nodded and left the office. Julian turned to face the windows, his reflection ghosting across the glass. He had built his fortune through technology, creating software that revolutionized how businesses operated globally. He was used to solving problems with logic and resources. But something about this situation felt different, more personal somehow. By early afternoon, Diane had located Cassandra. She was sitting on a bench near the waterfront, eating a small sandwich she had purchased with the few dollars she had left. When the black town car pulled up beside the bench, Cassandra looked up with a mixture of wariness and confusion. Julian stepped out, and for a moment they simply looked at each other. The man from the driver's license photograph, the serious eyes and composed expression, but in person there was something warmer about him, something that made Cassandra's heart beat a little faster despite her natural caution. "Cassandra Bennett?" Julian asked, his voice gentler than she had expected. "Yes," she replied carefully, setting down her sandwich. "Can I help you?" "I'm Julian Whitmore. You returned my wallet this morning." He took a few steps closer but maintained a respectful distance. "I wanted to thank you in person." Cassandra stood up slowly, brushing crumbs from her jacket. "You didn't need to find me. I just did what anyone should do." "But most people wouldn't," Julian said softly. "Most people would have kept the cash at minimum. You brought everything to the police station, walked out of your way, and asked for nothing in return." He paused, studying her face. "The sergeant told me you might be going through difficult times. That makes what you did even more remarkable." Cassandra felt her cheeks flush with a mixture of embarrassment and pride. She did not like being defined by her circumstances, but she also could not deny them. "I'm managing," she said quietly. "I don't need pity." "I'm not offering pity," Julian replied quickly. "I'm offering gratitude, and if you'll allow me, perhaps a conversation over a proper meal. You look like you could use one, and I'd like to get to know the person who reminded me that genuine integrity still exists." Cassandra hesitated. Every instinct told her to be careful, to protect herself. But there was something in Julian's eyes, a sincerity she had rarely encountered. And truthfully, she was exhausted from maintaining her guard every moment of every day. "Just a meal?" she asked. "Just a meal," Julian confirmed. "And a conversation. No strings attached." She nodded slowly, and Julian gestured toward the car. As they drove through the city toward a quiet restaurant Julian knew, Cassandra watched the buildings pass by, feeling like she was moving through a dream. Just that morning she had been searching for work, and now she was sitting in a luxury vehicle beside a millionaire who seemed genuinely interested in talking to her. The restaurant was elegant but not ostentatious, with soft lighting and private booths that offered intimacy without feeling oppressive. Cassandra felt self-conscious about her appearance, but Julian treated her with such natural respect that gradually her tension began to ease. Over plates of food that tasted better than anything Cassandra had eaten in months, they talked. Julian asked about her life, and something about his genuine interest made Cassandra open up in ways she had not done in years. She told him about teaching, about loving those third graders with their questions and laughter. She told him about getting sick, about the medical bills that destroyed her savings, about losing her job and then her apartment in quick succession. "I kept thinking it was temporary," Cassandra said softly, pushing pasta around her plate. "I kept thinking I would find another job, get back on my feet. But it's harder than people realize. Without an address, you can't get hired. Without money, you can't get an address. It becomes this impossible cycle." Julian listened without interrupting, without offering the easy platitudes people usually gave. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment before speaking. "I grew up with money," he said finally. "My father built a real estate empire, and I inherited advantages I didn't earn. But I also watched him become someone who believed wealth made him better than others, more deserving somehow. I promised myself I would never think that way." He met her eyes across the table. "Meeting you, hearing your story, it reminds me why that promise matters." "I don't want to be your charity project," Cassandra said, but her voice was gentle, not defensive. "You're not," Julian replied. "But I do want to help if you'll let me. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because you helped me today without expecting anything in return. Let me return that kindness." "How?" Cassandra asked cautiously. Julian leaned forward slightly. I own several properties, including a small apartment building near the university district. There's a vacant studio on the second floor. Let me give you a place to stay for 3 months, rent-free. Use that time to get back on your feet, find a job, rebuild. No conditions except that you let yourself have this chance. Cassandra felt tears prick at her eyes. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because you're not a stranger anymore, Julian said simply. And because I believe people deserve second chances, especially people who prove they have character when it matters most. She wanted to say yes immediately, but years of survival had taught her to question generosity. What if I can't find a job in 3 months? What if I fail? Then we'll figure out the next step, Julian said. But I don't think you'll fail, Cassandra. You're stronger than you realize. Something in his words broke through the wall she had built around herself. Cassandra nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging her throat. Julian reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers, a gesture of comfort and connection that sent warmth spreading through her chest. Thank you, she whispered finally. Thank you, Julian replied. For being exactly who you are. As they left the restaurant, stepping back into the autumn afternoon, neither of them fully understood what had begun between them. It was more than gratitude, deeper than kindness. It was the first thread of something that would weave their lives together in unexpected ways, a connection born from one honest act that proved sometimes the smallest decisions lead to the most profound changes. Julian arranged for Cassandra to move into the studio apartment that very evening. As she stood in the small but clean space with its own bathroom and tiny kitchen, she felt something she had not felt in 2 years, hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe her life could become something good again. What she did not know yet was that Julian felt something too, an unexpected pull toward this woman who had walked 30 minutes to do the right thing, who had chosen integrity over survival. In the days that followed, he found himself thinking about her more than he expected, wondering if she was settling in, if she needed anything, if she was okay. Their story was just beginning, built on a foundation of honesty and unexpected connection, and neither of them could have predicted where it would lead.